Hello everybody, this is Kirusho here. Now then, whenever we last left off, Todoroki had just asked Bakugo if he was All Might's secret love child. And Deku handed him a blueprint to show him exactly what he can make him. Now, with that being said, let us continue. Deku, he is walking away, and this is when for Bakugo, he would just ask exactly if he kind of figured out a good way for him to use One for All. To which Deku would turn to him, holding out his hand and scan Bakugo. To which he just has a look of confusion on his face, asking BT to run the numbers. To where Deku would ask Bakugo to turn on One for All. He would just charge it up in his arm as Deku scans him. Now, Deku just tells him to hold that for a minute. As he does so, Deku then asks Bakugo exactly, is he just keeping that in his arm? To where he would say yes, and you would just see Deku just have the helmet visor come up, as he says, run it through the body, or run it through your body. As Bakugo would give it a shot. Bakugo can feel his body, and, well, it does not feel comfortable, since he is trying to do full cowling. Deku telling him to bring it back. Bakugo doesn't understand this, but he at least knows that he can use his entire body now. So, that's not good. Deku just tells BT to go for further analysis, and to just help out Bakugo, as he would just grab the helmet, taking it off and handing it over to him, saying that BT will have his answer, as we will have Deku go to the ring. Alrighty, now then. Deku, he is walking to the arena. He would walk in, as people are just staring at him. As soon as Shinso walks into the ring, Deku immediately just takes off his sports festival jacket, and people would see Deku just in a tank top, as they see that he's actually very muscular, along with the piece on his back poking up out of his shirt. As Shinso just looks at Deku. As soon as that happens, Shinso just brings his hands up as Deku would begin to rush him. As soon as that happens, Shinso gets caught off guard, and Deku would just pick him up and toss him out of the ring. He didn't expect Deku to just bum rush him, to which Deku would just look at him saying that it's not really a fight. Besides, the only other way I could have seen this going is me answering one of your questions, but that would be if I didn't know your quirk. To which a lot of people are just hearing this conversation. Two ways it could have gone down, both of them winning. Interesting. Now, the next fight is Todoroki versus Sero. As that fight goes exactly like in canon. Ibara versus Kaminari. Exactly the same. Ida versus Mei. This is where things are different. Mei doesn't have any tech she needs to show off, especially not that gadget that she used against Ida. She would walk in, as she would just have the mask in her hand, saying that, let's at least make this a good fight. As she would put it on, as it seals with nanotech. As soon as President Mike says begin, Mei immediately begins by getting airborne, as Ida tries to use his quirk. Mei's airborne, and she actually does look down at her wrist, as she sees that she has about an hour left of power, so this will at least be good. She also does have the battery that well, sitting in that room, so she can charge up if she needs to. As she's thinking that, Ida just tried getting airborne, as he would have actually tried launching off the ground with reciprocal burst, going in for an attack. That will not work, as May, she would have actually used her hands and tried blasting at Ida, as she somewhat goes off balance. Flying, it's somewhat easy, but whenever you don't know how to counteract and redistribute your weight, things are a bit tricky. So she's still an amateur. Now, Ida, he actually would have kicked her in the side, but exactly hitting this metal with his leg, that's gonna hurt. So, well, it would do some damage to May, but it would do more to him. Especially because this metal's bulletproof. It's made to be tough. Now then, May, she would just somewhat go out of balance as she actually just try and counteract it and actually moves her hands, shifting them to the right and actually letting herself balance out her weight again. As she actually just come down closer to the ring, blasting at Ida, as she's just keeping herself balanced with her legs. She would actually hit Ida in the chest as Ida actually does fall into the ring, and somewhat just get shocked. This is where she would just open up the nanotech around her torso and pull out a little gadget. As soon as she pulls it out, she begins by tossing it straight at Ida. As soon as it makes contact with the ring, it explodes, sending Ida out of the ring. And she actually does take a little bit of notes in her head. Deku, he just thinks that was at least very good. So, she's coming up with more tech. Interesting. Let's see. As Deku, he just thinks about what could happen. Besides, I wonder if she's still making that thing. Now then. After that happens, let us have Mina versus Kendo. Now, this fight would go with Kendo winning, but while that's happening, up in the stands, Deku and Mei are talking. These two are basically sitting directly next to each other, and Mei is holding out her hand, as she is actually coding something. Deku, he's actually helping her and showing her parts of the code for BT, as people are asking exactly what is she doing. To which she would say that she kinda needs something to help her too. So, well, I'm trying to make my own BT, but I'm not. I'm making the coding a bit different, but it's still a bit tricky. I've never really done this part, so I'm kind of just putting in parts I see from Deku. Well, BT. To which BT, he would just say that he's flattered that she's trying to base something off of him, but, well, if it's too similar, she might get stuck with a BT. Not whatever she wants. Now, this is whenever she would eventually get just a very smart intelligence system. Or Jarvis, for short. She wouldn't get it operational while she's sitting there, but people at least do see her messing around with this. So, the fight, it would have been over while they were talking. We now have Momo versus Tokoyami. I want to say that Momo would have at least tried asking about some of the things Deku has, and he would have explained them a little bit, but not too much. So, well, I do want to say this fight goes somewhat like canon, but it's at least drawn out a little bit more. Since well, she doesn't know how to create nanotech, she doesn't know how to create anything else, so it would just end like that. Kirishima versus Tetsu. I want to say whenever they were messing around with the robots, well, Kirishima, not Tetsu, he would have probably tried seeing if he can take a punch from one, or at least seeing how tough they could be. I want to say that he would have at least taken a punch one time or a couple times whenever Deku wasn't looking. Whenever he did, walk away. So it would have at least helped toughen him up a little bit more, giving him the edge in the battle. Instead of these two colliding fists and knocking each other out, Kirishima would actually be the last one standing. By a little margin. Just being able to stop himself from collapsing before Tetsu. Now, Bakugo versus Uraraka. Bakugo would walk onto the ring, as so does Uraraka. But before he walked into the ring, he actually put BT's helmet on, asking exactly how can he use his quirk. As to which BT would pop up a graph of the scan Deku did on Bakugo, saying that this is the scan whenever he used One for All in his arm, showing exactly how his arm looked and the way it was glowing, while the way he was using One for All in his body looks very similar. His entire body coated in yellow with the lines covering his entire body. BT would just say that he did notice a small increase that gradually got larger, so you were actually building the power. However, you need to keep it at a constant low, so that you will be able to properly use it without hurting your body. However, there is a possibility you could strain your body if you bring it too high, and or start pulling muscles and eventually getting to the point where it starts affecting your bones. Bakugo hearing that would be a bit more understood and listen, as he does set down the helmet and actually practice trying to use One for All, as his name would have been called. Now, they would walk out onto the ring. President Mike would announce that Bakugo, he has a explosion quirk and an enhancement quirk. People would find this interesting because they've never seen two different quirks like that. As Bakugo would just step onto the ring, so would Uraraka. Now, afterwards, this is whenever Bakugo, he would just say that this match was kind of over before it started. Uraraka would just tell Bakugo that that is not true. In fact, she plans on making this a good one, and she actually does plan on winning this. Bakugo seeing her determination. This is whenever he would just say that he's sorry to disappoint her, as he charges up his body. Everyone in class when they would just watch as Bakugo covers his body in electricity, and he immediately just throws his arms outwards. He is at 30% to 35% of One for All, as just tossing his arms outwards caused a small shockwave. As he actually does look down at his hands, as they begin to burst with tiny explosions. He just thinks that this is crazy. So, this works, but it does feel a bit hard to move. So I guess that's the downside. Now then, as soon as that happens, Bakugo would immediately blast forward, as he uses explosions, not expecting them to be as large as they were. So he actually does have to wait for a second and burst again, instead of doing it continuously, like he usually does. Now, this is where he begins by throwing explosions and actually trying to get up close to Uraraka, thinking that if he can just pin her to the ring and disable her hands, then this would at least show that her quirk is dangerous, since he goes directly for disabling her. At least allowing her to probably get some more internships, since just throwing her out of the ring would be a bad idea. Eventually it would get to the point where Bakugo just keeps throwing explosions, and eventually enough rubble would be created. Now, because of that, this is where Deku, he would just look up, seeing exactly what's going on, as he actually does ask BT to scan the ring. Seeing exactly that some pieces of rubble, they aren't big, but they will still land outside. As he would just say that that's good, will at least hit civilians. No, it will not. Course directs that it will just fall directly back down. Okay, good. Now, this is whenever Ochako would create her meteor strike, or meteor shower. Tapping release and letting it off. As Baku would raise his hand upward, blasting it away, actually straightening his arm. The explosion being nearly twice as big than the one in canon. Him actually just holding his arm and actually having a lot of strain, as Ochako would rush him. He would begin by just holding his arm outwards and actually blasting her in the side. As whenever he did that, she actually did somewhat wince in pain, as Baku would have actually just rushed at her, grabbing her, pinning her to the ring. As people would be talking. After the match, Baku would have let her up and he would have actually apologized, saying that he didn't think that he would hit her in the side. He's sorry. And people would have actually heard that. So they know that his quirk, his confidence, and everything like that, it seems to be what he puts on. So it at least works. Now, Deku versus Todoroki. Todoroki, he would have actually gotten this piece from Deku, and Deku would have walked into the ring. Now, Deku, as soon as he walks into the ring, he immediately just takes off his shirt as he pulls it over, and just drops it outside. Now, this is whenever he just starts by focusing on his quirk and turning it on. As people would see this, Deku would immediately begin by just somewhat feeling himself increase in muscle, or at least what feels like him getting stronger, as 10% of his system is pumped with nanites. Deku actually feeling everything speed up. Now, Todoroki would walk out. Whenever he does so, this is whenever Midnight would just question exactly what is that on his arm. To which he would just say that this is something his opponent gave him. His opponent knows that he doesn't like using his other quirk, or other side. So he gave me something to make this side stronger. To which Midnight would just turn to the referees, asking exactly can he do that. To which they would say that that kid filled out a mountain worth of paperwork, so it's probably in there somewhere. Now then, eventually, this is when Todoroki, the match would begin and he would immediately hold his hand outwards to blast ice. Finding that the ice doesn't come directly out of, thin air or beside him, it comes straight from his hand, as it blasts out forwards, basically making a pillar directly towards Deku. Deku would bring his hands up as he begins to smash at the ice. People watching that he's actually breaking it. Now, Deku keeps using his quirk as he's increasing the nanites in his system. 20% to 30%. As Todoroki would watch as whenever he stops using the pillar, it would just fall to the ground, and Deku's hands are actually somewhat injured, having blood coming out of his knuckles. Now, this is whenever he would just bring them up as they would actually start healing, as he looks down at this, and just looks back at Todoroki. Todoroki being a bit confused. That's not his quirk. That's something else. So, exactly what are you? Now, Before he can say anything, Deku would have activated his titanfall. As Todoroki, he would immediately try using his quirk the way he wants to. He would have done so actually finding that this is a lot bigger. As the ice he throws towards Deku, it's just a massive pillar. Right before it hits the halfway mark in the ring, this is whenever the titanfall would happen. And Ion would fall on to the ring, shattering the ice. Now, Deku, he would have immediately just jumped upwards, getting directly into the cockpit. As Todoroki, he gets ready. BT would just say that he does not have the helmet, so Link cannot be accomplished. Mission: defeat the Endeavor, or defeat Todoroki Shoda. So, this is whenever Deku, he would immediately just get BT to start smashing with the ice, as BT just keeps dodging and actually trying to get Todoroki, eventually getting close enough to pick him up and try and toss him out of the ring. But before that could happen, Todoroki, he would have gotten annoyed. With his hand pointed downward, he would blast a pillar of ice straight upwards, straight down, launching himself upwards. As Deku would watch this happen, Todoroki would have gotten away from him as he is actually on top of the mech. He tries to pull out Deku's power source, but he doesn't know about turning it, so he just keeps trying to yank at it. As Deku would have had Ion just reach backwards trying to grab at him. Todoroki would have just gotten off the mech as he begins to try and blast fire at him. As he doesn't care anymore, he just wants to win. His opponent is being annoying. Deku would just see him finally use his quirk, as Todoroki just keeps blasting fire, before he realizes he's using it, switching back over to his ice. Now, with that happening, Deku, he would have been able to run over and just knock out the ring in front of him, as he would have done so pulling it directly upwards and getting Todoroki off balance, while he's trying to figure out exactly what to do. Now then, he used his quirk whenever he didn't want to. So what does that mean? Well, there. Now then, the next match. Ibara versus Mei. This match goes differently because as soon as it begins, Mei would have immediately gotten off the ground, getting off of the ring. So Ibara cannot just get her with the vines. Now, Ibara would have seen that as she just thinks that this is going to be a bit more difficult. So she begins by sprouting her vines into the ground and trying to blast them outwards, directly at Mei. While that is happening, Mei, she's just trying to dodge them as she keeps doing so. As this is whenever Ibara would have gotten annoyed, trying to use her quirk more, getting them to actually throw out in multiple different directions, as she would have actually gotten Mei's leg as she just keeps trying to pull away at it. While that's happening, this is whenever Ibara, she would just focus on getting that leg, as she wraps the vines around them, getting them to come up to her waist. While that's happening, Mei, she would immediately just turn her other leg as she begins to move around, spinning in circles around the ring. She's trying to burn away at the vines and get them off of her. But that is not working, because anytime she does so, Ibara just throws more at her. So she does one thing. She pulls back as much as she can, as she just lets her arms disengage. She begins to fall from being top-heavy, and she immediately turns them back on, as she did a loop-de-loop, and it begins to fly straight for Ibara. Ibara would have been surprised because she didn't expect her to do this. She would have began by just smashing directly into Ibara's chest, knocking the wind out of her, and just carry her out of the ring, as she actually does keep flying and smashing her into the wall, hurting her quite a bit. However, not enough to break her back now. Ida versus... Well, no, wait, that's not right. Kendo versus Tokoyami. This fight would go a bit, well, differently. Tokoyami would just keep trying to knock her out of the ring with Dark Shadow, but she would just keep knocking away Dark Shadow, eventually getting close enough to just punch him out of the ring by just cocking her arm backwards and throwing it forwards and making it larger. Now then, Hiroshima versus Bakugo. Bakugo would have tried getting a handle on One for All during this fight, so he would just be throwing punches at Kirishima. He's trying to use 5%, finding that to be a bit too little, since Kirishima just keeps shaking them off. 10%, now we're talking. 15%, perfect. As he's able to punch over and over again, actually doing some damage to Kirishima. Boosting himself up to 20%, he finds that this is actually perfect. He can stay here and he has direct maneuverability. Things don't feel sore, and he can actually use a good amount of power. Now then, Deku versus Mei. This is a fight people were waiting for, but they're a bit hesitant on it, since they know that these are two tech heads. Mei would have gotten ready with loading her Jarvis into the Hulkbuster to at least try and give it a test run. So, while that happens, Mei, she would have actually gotten ready, as whenever the round begins, Deku and Ion are just standing there. Everyone's a bit confused as to why Deku's not just in his mech trying to rush at her, as a loud sound can be heard. They would all look up to see a giant suit smash into the ring, as Mei immediately just flies upwards and lowers herself into it, as they are a bit confused. They would watch as the suit closes around her and a giant helmet forms, and the lights come on, as she asks Jarvis if he's there, to which she would say that, "I am here, Miss Hatsume." "Why are you British?" "Well, it appears that the line of code you put into my subroutine was, well, a bit wonky." "Oh, well, Actually, this is perfect." "What do you mean, Miss Hatsume?" "Well, you see," as she would give a brief explanation, while Deku is waiting. As soon as he jumps into the cockpit, he would enable comms, saying that this will prove exactly once and for all who's better. As the match would begin, Deku and Mei would immediately rush at each other, as these two, their giant hands would collide, Deku and her fighting for dominance. Deku would just say that it's good that they at least know each other. They used similar tech for all their builds. So, as Deku, his giant hands would immediately just overtake Mei's, saying that he at least knows certain weaknesses, and so does she. But having to rebuild, he had to improvise. As him and her begin to fight, they're just throwing giant punches, as occasionally Deku would phase shift, getting away and jumping in a different dimension this time. It seems like the technology is improving, because this time the place is dark, but sometimes it gets a flash, and the ring seems to be empty. So, that's a bit weird. No. Well, that's happening. This is whenever Deku, he would have been able to get behind Mei, as he actually just tried putting her into a full Nelson, actually just smashing her mech into the ring, as Mei just keeps trying to get away from Deku, as she holds out her hands, blasting them directly at him. People are watching as they did not expect this type of fight, as Deku, he would just begin by punching at Mei while she just punches at him. These two actually just getting really intense in the fight, as it would go on for quite some time, eventually getting into a struggle once more. While that happens, Mei has an idea. She saw Todoroki do this, but he didn't do it the way she knows to do it. So she would immediately open up the armor, as she has it on autopilot. Deku would have seen as he's confused, realizing exactly what she's doing. She would have jumped onto the pilot, or, well, not onto the pilot, but onto the top of it and immediately go for the battery. She would have turned it, pulling it outwards, as the mech would give, or, well, somewhat lose a lot of power. As she opens up her jacket, grabbing a small device, pressing it and immediately just throwing it into the bin. And or power, well, the outlet, or the intake for the power. As she jumps away, with the battery in hand. Landing onto the ring, she would just watch as Deku's mech is coated with electricity, and it would fall over. The round would end as Mei walks back over and puts this in. Deku's mech immediately whirling to life, as he would immediately open up the cockpit, get out and say that that was cheating. Oh, come on, there's no cheating in a fight. Oh, come on, you and I both know that was not supposed to happen. Well, beggars can't be choosers. As she somewhat laughs. People are watching this happen as Deku, he would do one thing. He would just say that you can't really blame her though. That was at least a good tactic. As she would have actually kissed him. People would see that, wait, these two are actually a couple? And they're both... Okay, this just got a bit more interesting. As people keep a note of that. A lot of the companies would realize that if they get one of them to come to their company, they can get both of them. So that would be perfect. Now then, with that being said, Deku, he would walk out of the ring as Ion is teleported away, seeing as he lost. Now, Mei would watch the next fight, as it is going to be Kendo versus Bakugo. This fight would go differently because it never happened in canon, but anytime Bakugo throws around 20%, Kendo's giant hands, I want to say they're at least able to take the force. However, her staying on her feet is a bit hard, since anytime Bakugo actually does throw around this percentage, she has to keep herself steady. As I want to say eventually she would pull a muscle in her leg, because trying to keep that much force from moving, eventually it's going to take a strain. And whenever Bakugo does go to throw his next punch, whenever he does so, she would have actually buckled and come to the ground, as Bakugo would be able to just throw her out of the ring. Mei versus Bakugo. This fight is interesting because people, they know exactly what Mei can do and what Bakugo can do. So the fight will be different. Now, this is whenever Bakugo, he would get ready. Now, President Mech would just say, 3, 2, 1, begin! As Bakugo charges up to 35. He knows that he's going to need it, so he should at least give it a shot. Now, he would immediately rush at her as he begins to try and do what she did, going straight for the power source. But she predicted this. So as soon as Bakugo would have tried climbing onto her back, this is whenever something would disengage, as the back of the mech swings outwards, hitting Bakugo in the chest. As she would just say that she really doesn't expect that she can't disengage in any part of this thing. If I'm in a confrontation, I have multiple ways to get out of it. So, well, obviously one of them is going to be by the power source. Now, you don't have a chance at winning, Bakugo, as he gets rushed. She would be running forward as Bakugo has an idea, albeit not a good one. So he charges up one for all, in his arm. He comes up to 100% as he just holds out his fingers and does one thing. Smash. As the force blows Mei away. She gets flung, if not taken, to the other side of the ring, being directly in front of Bakugo, as her hand would just be buried into the ground. She would look up, looking at Bakugo's broken hand, as she rushes straight for him. Smash. Over and over and over again. Eventually, Bakugo would switch over to his other hand as he keeps trying. Now, this tactic Mei thinks it's not easy. He's running out of hands, and he's going to use his arm in the next one. So she has an idea, as she begins to rush at Bakugo. Bakugo goes to cock his arm backwards as she knew it, as she immediately disengages from the mech, jumping straight up into the air. Bakugo, he already threw his hand outwards as he would have seen this. As soon as the force in his arm is exerted and it breaks. Now, Mei, she would have immediately come down by using her hands, holding them outwards, and blasting them, as she comes in with enough force to kick Bakugo in the chest, and break a few ribs, knocking him out of the ring as the Hulkbuster was sent flying across and actually out, as people would just watch. Mei, she would just take a deep breath as she actually does stumble over, wringing her hands outwards as she somewhat just laughs, albeit very, very nervously. It's not a I'm confident I won laugh, it's a oh thank God I won laugh. Now, this is whenever the medals will be passed out. Deku coming in third, Bakugo coming in second after seeing Recovery Girl, and Mei coming in first, as All Might would congratulate them. He would say that, young Bakugo, it is good that you got your issues sorted out with your quirk. So he must commend him for that. No. Young Mei, that was great. Albeit a bit reckless. The same tactic over and over again, that's a little crazy, don't you think? Well, All Might, I kinda had a plan. My idea was to keep rushing him until he ran out of fingers, but he switched to the other hand. Then he ran out of fingers on those ones. So I knew his next move would be to use his arm. So, you use the time to... Yep. Oh, perfect. A good strategy then. I must commend you for that. Now then. That is where he would go over to Deku, as he would just say that, young Midoriya, a good job, and, well, a good effort. You would be an excellent pilot. To which Deku's eyes would somewhat widen. Hearing that from All Might actually kinda means a lot to him. Just not as much as in canon. A lot of people say you can't be a pilot, but someone finally said he can. So he would just hold his arm outwards. As All Might would shake it, Deku actually smirking. Now, that is going to be where I leave this part off of, guys. I do hope you enjoyed, and I'm going to see exactly how long this is, since I have to edit these pieces together. Pretty sure it's close to 40 minutes.